Okay. We were Charrette number 3, and I think they lost our PowerPoint. No, I'm just kidding. I know Jerry doesn't like this, but as Don just pointed out, I'm a PowerPoint atheist, a power atheist, powerthist. I don't know what the word is, but we don't have a PowerPoint. I think we're probably the only group who doesn't. We had a wonderful group, and I'll just say that I really dreaded this whole thing, Jeff. I got to tell you, like, why are you having us do all of your work for you? You're not paying us to do it.
Because he's smart.
And then you make us work till late in the night. I got up at 4 a.m. myself yesterday to get here. Anyway, but I wanted to point out just last night's exchange with the Charrette at dinner and with the group has been a great highlight for me. Being able to actually work with these people, my colleagues, new friends and old friends, and that's thanks to you that we were able to do that. And hopefully some of what we've all shared can actually also benefit you, but just know that it's benefited us. and you can pay me later. But we had a wonderful group made up of Don, Jay, Carol, Lee, David, Peter, Ralph, Ruby, Mayuka, and Michael. I just want to say that, start by saying that as we thought about the idea of creation of new work and the creation of new work in the space that's required for that, Ralph started off by asking the question, how do we design space for the creation of new work before we address the politics of the culture of space? And it sort of made us stop. And so we started thinking about what he meant by that. And as we went along our conversation, we started thinking about the Hop's history, and that you are approaching now your 50th anniversary, and that when the Hop was built, it was a leader, a visionary, really at the forefront of multi-venue performing arts centers in America, and that in the ways you welcomed all disciplines, and the ways you encouraged art making as a legitimate academic enterprise, all these ways, the Hop was ahead of its time. Well, that in many ways, I think that needs to be reflected in the future. So what is the representation of this, of the next 50 years? What is the next visionary statement the Hop will make going forward? And we probably will argue that it's not necessarily in the spaces you make, but perhaps in how you operate as an organization. And so the idea that, first of all, that the Hop has to build on its legacy, we think is a critical thing, and I think more importantly, can serve as a national model in how it operates within the context of a college and university. So how does this apply in terms of the issues of space? Obviously, we all know, and a lot of what you've already heard is something that we've already put here, and I've asked Don to join me here because I'm not really good at staying on task, and I'm probably will leave out lots of things.
Okay.
So Don will do that, but
I'm wearing shorts. That's the real reason.
But we actually do have a list of things that we will hand over to Jeff on a lot of the details and specifics of our suggestions. But we all thought that it would be important for us to sort of really try to stay as high picture on this as possible. We all know that spaces need to be flexible, adaptable. We talked about transparency, but it was clear to us that having these flexible, adaptable, and transparent spaces means little when the administrative structures around them aren't flexible, adaptable, and transparent. And that's not I think emblematic of only Dartmouth. I think that can be said of almost every college campus in this country. And this is where I think the Hop could really leverage this opportunity to take a leadership role in examining the inefficiencies and barriers that currently exist with regards to the arts practice, arts creation, and arts consumption across the campus, and in current spaces and available spaces like the issues that exist in Alumni Hall. And so it was within that context we thought about some suggestions for larger reaching activities or initiatives that might help in this regard, but I think the real heavy lifting has to come from the Hop in trying to determine whether or not it wants to embrace this much larger role in trying to transform the way an arts center interacts with an academy. Now, going back to these suggestions, we mentioned, and there are a couple of them here that I think are really, really crucial, and this is where hopefully Don will jump in if I forget things. One, we talked about the development of a center for research, collaboration, and creation, where non-arts faculty can spend a year or so in residence in arts departments to create work or creative processes around a specific idea. That's one. Two, that, and I think Ruby mentioned this, and I think it's really interesting, the idea that we organize spaces not by genre or discipline, but rather by time. This idea that we allow artists and work to be organized via short-term, mid-term, and long-term lengths. The idea that artists create work in very different temporal modes, and if there was a way for us to actually organize it this way, we can actually create different experiences and engagement opportunities for the entire campus by giving them this opportunity. Three, we also spent time, and this was again mentioned here already, but the importance and the use of technology in engaging the audience, both in the reactive and in the self-creative modes of relating to work, and that the HOP should also actively include the local artistic community and also Dartmouth alums who are artists in this conversation from as early on as possible, so that the design of spaces actually follows these design of relationships. I think that's the most important thing, that the sequence should be, in our view, that the design of any space should follow the design of relationships, and that the HOP has a real great chance now to redesign the relationships, and in particular how it relates to the college. So in just closing, I'll say that, and lights aren't even on, that we think that the HOP must embrace the future of art making beyond the traditional theater, and that it should institutionalize this idea of art everywhere and anywhere, and its role in curating not just the program, but its role in curating a culture. And the last thing I'll say is that whatever you do, you need to make sure that it's made of high-tech, high-end latex. Oh, high-end, high-tech inflatable latex.
So a couple of things I would add, and then ask our group to look at is, I think one of the things we said in terms of the trends was about interdisciplinary work, and by which we meant not just the arts disciplines, but so again, that goes back to this whole issue of structures and organization, and making sure that in fact there's a way to do that work within the culture of the university. So for example, when a neuroscientist and a theatrical person and a visual artist are working together, that work counts. That work counts for them as a faculty member, that work counts for the students, that this is not extra and extracurricular. That's an example of what we were talking about that's pretty much intrinsic and endemic in most of these academic cultures and institutions, that if the space is going to be meaningful and going to be used well, that culture and organizational structure needs to change to support the work as you use it. The other thing that we commented on, since one of the possible spaces are the vacated, will be from the vacated art studios, which are across from the cafe, that we thought that actually that's really good if the cafe stays there, or at least part of the cafe stays there and doesn't move to the street. That the opportunity for those, that we think it's a great thing that students have been brought into this building to just socialize with their friends, to eat. They've been kind of tricked to coming into the Performing Arts Center to do other things. We thought that was extremely good. And if in fact the space where work was being created was across the way and was literally transparent, if the artists, for those artists who allowed their work to be seen as it was being worked on, would be an incredible way to engage this casual, not yet realizing audience into connecting with the HOP. So we thought that could be a wonderful proximity of these students who are in the building for other reasons to be brought in and engaged with work that's in the process of being made.